With that, I want to bring in my first guest. Solomiia Bobrovska is a member of the Ukrainian Parliament and deputy head of the Ukrainian delegation to NATO. She was good enough to join us on Tuesday, but our conversation was interrupted by Vladimir Putin's bombs. Here is exactly what happened.
We're expecting they will continue to attack the Ukrainian capital, and now I just heard the bombing. They will continue to attack Kyiv as it is the main target in order to take the parliamentary hill, governmental hill, to establish their government. I have to leave the interview because this shelling is so close, and I have to go to bomb shelter. I'm sorry.
Member of Parliament Solomiia Bobrovska is back with us again tonight, and thank God you are. And I thank you so much for doing this again. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, your time. First and foremost, are you safe? Has anything changed?
Yes, I hope I'm safe. Good evening. And it was, I'm sorry for the last time. It was a very specific moment, I would say, maybe the first time when just online you heard the sound of bombing, and it hit one of the houses just in 4 kilometers away from me. And it's very typical time, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. when Russians usually start to attack actually throughout the Ukraine. Now I hope I'm safe, but they continue to shell all over Ukraine, and you cannot be safe even on the west, somewhere deep on the west, and in Kyiv the same. We expect the same in Odessa. That's a very south on the sea. And of course, I cannot mention that they continue to shell Mariupol and Kharkiv as well.
Ms. Bobrovska, you know, I started this program by reading some of the final posts from my American colleague, Jimmy Hill, who is now confirmed dead after being attacked in a hospital. It's just unimaginable that we're even reporting this on a regular basis, that, you know, targets of hospitals, maternity hospitals, children's wards, the theater packed with kids with signs saying children here are still getting targeted. I want to ask you as a member of Parliament how you're coping, but I also want to ask you as just a human being how you're coping.
To be honest, we will call to the whole states to recognize Russia as a terrorist state, and we see and we hear how simply Putin is trying to explain why he's doing here. He's just saying that, you know, they had heard in that places, in the maternity, for example, houses, or in the hospitals, the military units. And that's why we're attacking that objects. That's very simple. But we see what's going on. Or they are trying to say that, you know, it's NATO fakes. These videos, it's not that reality is happening in Ukraine. That's ridiculous. Like, it's not even the post-truth reality in Russia. You know what the world knows and see every day, each moment, on what's going on. And I'm really shocked how we see how Russian people are reacting on these moments in Ukraine. They're just refusing to recognize its war, and they continue to support so-called special operations with that letter on their marking on their during their strikes or on cars, showing the support of the special operations. I don't know. We will continue next week. The Parliament will gather probably again, and we will continue to ask the states to have the appeals that we have to recognize Russia as the terrorist state.
I would love to ask you more about that. The members of Parliament are planning to gather again next week. That's remarkable. How?
So we have to understand that the Parliament continue to work. Some of my colleagues staying still in Kyiv, some of them in suburbans, some of us, actually all, we are working with our constituency on the fields or with armed forces as well. By the way, fighting or being mobilized to armed forces. We actually usually plan to meet each week, despite the old situation, because that's our duty actually, and no one can stop on the siege probably of the total siege of Kyiv will stop us to meet. So we are now working on the agenda, and probably we will meet and we will go and vote.
I mean, I'm curious to ask you, as a member of parliament, how often you and your fellow MPs have been able to meet in the last 4 weeks? And is it virtual? Are you actually able to gather in a building anywhere, just for fear of that being such a prime target?
Yes, we all understand the risks, but again, it's our duty. And for the last 22 days of war, we met twice, yes, even 3 times. In Kyiv, not online, offline, voting in Rada. We do understand again the risk, but we understand that so many people are behind our shoulders, and we have to do our duty. They voted for us, and we have to fulfill what they trust to us. So no one is hesitating to come, and I would say that more than 350 MPs among 423 came to Kyiv just these days, 2 days ago to Kyiv, and everybody was working, voting, and no one hesitated to come to Kyiv.
350 out of 423 members of parliament came to Kyiv, and you've been voting and carrying on business, and you've had upwards of 3 parliamentarian meetings and plan to have another one next week. It's absolutely remarkable, as is the bravery of your president. We watched as Volodymyr Zelensky did yet another address on his diplomacy tour. This time he's, spoken with the German government, and he was quite tough on the Germans, scolding them effectively for their relationship, their economic ties to Russia, and suggesting that the never again, slogan after World War II is now worthless. Tell me your impression of the post-address German reaction. Do you know how the Germans received this?
We know that this morning we'll have, by the way, the meeting with the Committee of Foreign Affairs, and we'll ask about the reaction of the German politicians. What we see now, that how many really supported the German people to Ukraine, and how much they are doing the work, and we will hope that German as a state will do the same as their nation. But actually, the President Zelensky was really sharp, and he had the reasons to be so. And we see, unfortunately, how German and France, they treat this war and trying to find, I would say, the compromise with the Putin. Actually, they were doing this all the time, and I remember during our meetings within the NATO Parliamentary Assembly how they're trying to avoid to say Russia can be the threat. So they have to find the compromise. They have to find the way to talk to Russia each time. I hope out of the speech, German politicians will understand how they are responsible as well for tolerating Russia during this war in Ukraine, that they're responsible for this horror as well.
Well, from this side of the Atlantic, it must have buoyed your spirits, you and your fellow parliamentarians, to hear Joe Biden, the president of the United States, call Vladimir Putin a war criminal in those words, stark and real. And then within 24 hours, the shipments are en route of $800 million in military supplies. That has to, at the very least, feel good, given the fact that the no-fly zone is still off limits.
We know for the increase of the military supplies, and we do understand that finally our armed forces can be more effective, especially in the sky, to work harder and to protect civilians. And we hope the same, at least the part of that will do our EU partners and allies which used to be partners. To be honest, we hope, by the way, that this is the 5th day of the negotiations between the Russian and Ukrainian delegation now, and they're trying to find at least some points to be even not to be signed, but to find the compromises, especially in the condition of the humanitarian corridors. And we are hoping that maybe tomorrow or the day next after tomorrow, we find maybe the peaceful solution for all this what's going on. But I want to just to underline and stress, it can be recognition of Crimea as a part of Russia, and can be recognition the so-called republics as being independent states. That's a suicide for us, and it's impossible to be discussed.
Solomiia Bobrovska, I'm so glad that we were able to get this interview done tonight, and that so far I'm not hearing any bombardment, and I pray that that's going to be the reality for the rest of the night. Thank you for coming back with us, and I'd like to continue to check in with you periodically just to see how things are going, especially after you and your fellow parliamentarians meet again next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.